Hello, everybody. We're back after a prolonged break. It's a little before 4 a.m. here, Pacific time, Saturday morning. And we got Emery going strong there in Montreal, and James in Cork, Ireland. We got Melvin still on the screen, but haven't heard from him in at least 6 hours. So he may have just left the window open. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Anybody who wants to say hello at this early morning hour?
Good morning. Good morning. We're here. We're still alive. Made it for another day.
Yep. That's right.
Like to see it sunrise again.
Yep. Yeah. You know.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, when I woke up after like a little over 3 hours of sleep to my alarm clock, and I come in and I see there's no activity, I'm just like, all right, should I just go back to sleep? You know, you're kind of tempted to keep sleeping, but you know, for me, there's something, you know, so important about what we're doing. You know, even if we're tired, worn out, we're keeping the flame lit. The flame, like you see in some of James's paintings, right? I really love that one that looks like winter solstice or something, and you got that bonfire going on. It just looks so cool. It just looks like some, you know.
That's a group of men then doing a buffalo dance, dance for the poor around the fire. They pray to the Great Spirit to feed those in the tribe, not those that dance, but those that don't have it.
Those in the tribe who simply don't have.
Yeah, the dancers don't dance for themselves. They dance for pleading for the food for those who don't have it.
Gotcha.
It's I took it from a sketch from it was a sketch of shit, I had his name down now 2 seconds ago. His name will come back to me now, but he ventured out into the frontier back in the early 1800s. I'm talking about now.
Daniel Boone?
Oh God, no, he wasn't a mountain man. Really, he was an artist.
Oh.
And he lived with the Mandan for a long time, and he studied and painted a lot of different tribes around those areas. Then, it was just after the Lewis and Clark expedition. His name will come to me now, the artist, but yeah, I have a book of his there, and there's some beautiful writing in it because he lived and observed them in the day, But that was just one of the sketches he done because he loved their spirituality, and their whole existence was all about looking after those who didn't have it. The great chief wasn't the chief because of how many people he killed at all. It was because he gave what he had to those who didn't.
Yeah. You know, that is so clearly the way. I mean, it's so obvious to us now. You know, having been exploring this. I mean, don't you just feel it in your heart, in your gut? That is so clearly the way, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think without a doubt, and there's no one here has a better way of articulating it than Jackie, as far as I'm concerned. And she said it there again yesterday. It's just something that you wake in the morning with, and when you wake and you know, when you come to yourself, your senses, once you finally, it's the first thing that kind of hits you. Well, it is with me anyway lately as well. It's the first thing that hits me when I get up in the morning. The first thing I do is I think of my I think of my cats, my animals, and the birds. Feed the birds, feed the cats. I don't even think of feeding myself. It's always that. Like. But when I do that, I just get such moments of peacefulness doing that and observing the birds. And it's those thoughts that come into my head that Jackie was on about, like, that we are on the right path. So it feels like right. It feels that all these little pieces are starting to fall into place. Like, so, yeah, Jackie definitely articulates it better than anyone, I think. And it's like a two-sided coin too, like, because while at the same time I also get up in the mornings and I feel Emery's side of the coin too. When you start to think of the negative side of all the bad things happening, and that can crowd over you too. Like, so there's good days and bad days. It's like two sides of the coin, really. But to be honest with you, I think the good side of the coin is starting to show its face a lot more now to me anyway lately.
Yeah, it's just so clear. It just feels like humanity is just starting to wake up from a 10,000 year sleep. That we've just got into this bad trance of hoarding for me.
The
Yeah.
hypnosis is wearing off. The hypnosis is wearing off.
Yeah. No, and you get hypnotized by it.
Well, instead of a swinging watch for 100 years, more or less, we've had motion pictures and television. Like, once the television came into our sitting rooms, that was the whole lot of us hypnotized, easily tuned in and easily swayed, you know, to think differently straight away. Collectively.
Yeah, and we're all of the similar age. Remember back in the 1970s when television really kind of got into full freaking swing. I mean, I was only born in 68, so I can't speak for the 60s, but I mean, in the 70s, it just became like this pervasive thing where, and very different from today. See, in the 1970s, when you got up in the morning and you went to school, in my case, everyone had watched the same thing on television the night before because there was only one thing to watch, And so, there was a certain beauty in that to me. It's more like a nostalgic beauty looking in retrospect, is that, we were all on the same page, right? In a sense, right? In terms of our collective attention, right? We being a given country, let's say. And when I went to Spain, I went to live in Spain, 82, 83. And I was in, a town in southeastern Spain that hardly anyone went to who wasn't from there, the town of Murcia. And there were like, I don't know, 2 channels or something like that. So it was even more pronounced. But now with so many media outlets, news outlets, so much internet, I mean, it's kind of led to, in a sense, more fragmentation, but we needed that fragmentation and freedom to get to where we freaking are right here, right now, right? We needed to be able to create this space in order to figure out the stuff that we're figuring out. Anyway.
Well, if you think about it, they had a swinging pendulum in front of us for a long time with the television. And it was, as you said, there was very little channels. So there was mass, amount of people looking at the same thing. easily tuned in and easily, as I said, persuaded to think differently, ad- with advertisements and such. But and with, you know, with propaganda films and everything coming into it then later on. But the screen now is in our lives now and has been ever since. The fundamental, well, the way I see it, the fundamental shift is they put a keyboard in front of the screen now for us, for the new generations. So we now control what we look and what we view at. Now we control it to a certain degree, is what I say, because regardless of what you search for, it's still being put up there by somebody else. It's still being put up there by the powers. The powers of be still have a great amount of control over it, but they're losing that control. So therefore, the hypnosis is fading. You know, the power is weakening. People are coming out of the trance and starting to realize this isn't fucking right at all. Like, you know what I mean? You know, it's only a matter of time. I mean, oppression can only be put up with for so long too. Like, people will only live under the thumb for so long. Right is right and wrong is wrong, regardless of how long you put up with it.
Yeah, exactly. But I like your idea of the television with the keyboard. But, you know, and that explains, you know, that's a good model for, you know, Internet 1.0. But here we are now with over a quarter century of internet under our belts. And look at us now. Not only can I control the television screen with my fingers here and control what comes out of it and be very specific that way, I'm now talking to the television and I see my face on the TV screen, right? I mean, you know, it's a simple way of describing video conferencing, but the profound point is it's here. It's no longer science fiction. And I, you guys probably remember a few months ago, me saying that like video conferencing has crept up on us, similar to how climate change crept up on us, right? You, you know how climate change has just sort of crept up on us?
Yeah, we've always been aware of it. We've always been aware that we're going to have a problem with it in the future. You know, in the future. And it was always the same with television. You know, oh, we'll have color televisions in the future, and it'll be better, and it'll be this, and it'll be that. And yeah, it takes us a while to cop on. It only took us 25 years with the internet to start figuring out what to really use it for, which is this collective intelligence, simple and plain. I mean, that is the way to use it. That is the way to, you know, it is the right tool for the right job. Like, so, and the Zoom conferencing, yeah, I mean, I think that's after taking the world by storm. Under their noses, but yet takes a fundamental shift for people to realize anything. Anyway. You know what I mean?
Totally. And, you know, just like, you know, the cartoon image of the early stone cavemen, you know, with fire, you know, and they're banging the rocks together and sparks are flying. And it's like, they're just trying to, you know, get control of it. That's, for me, that's analogous to where we are right now with Zoom, with video conferencing. It's like we have this tool, it's so powerful, and we're banging rocks together and a couple of sparks fly every now and then, right? I'm not trying to poke fun at ourselves as individuals, but I'm just saying as a species, where we're at with video conferencing, it's just scratching the surface. And I'm not talking about resolution or how many people you can have on the screen or any bullshit like that. What I'm talking about is organizing it as collective intelligence and route to collective superintelligence. I mean, with all the Zoom video conferences that are happening now, I make this point over and over that the network is there. It's just not connected. It's not hyper connected. And you can't search for other people's Zoom video conferences. Even people who want to project them, there's no index, right? There's no phone book of Zoom video conferences, right? So that's when I say we're at the early stages of the potential of collective superintelligence based on video conferences, right?
At the moment, we're one single strand of cobweb, floating in the air until we attach ourselves to something and build a complete web. It's as simple as that. Like.
That's it. That's it. We're a strand. We're just kind of floating in space, right? Barely aware of other strands. A little more than barely, right? We're aware of other strands. But you know what? At the same time, not really. You know what I mean? Right? Here's what I mean. Here's what I mean. Like, take any one of us, right? And pull us out of the block party. And let's say we're just walking down the street, whatever. We don't know about each other. We don't know about the block party. Yeah, we know about Zoom and the internet and all that, but la, 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 la. And then we suddenly stumble upon the block party. And we see everybody here doing their thing. We're like, holy shit, you know, and then we've got to be a part of it. And we can't imagine ourselves being anywhere else, right? Now just consider that, like the block party, there've got to be other groups out there that are doing just super cool stuff that's so radical that if we only connected with them, we'd probably do some big ass mixer, right? You know, like we've taken a couple of field trips to other people's meetings in the past, whether on Tuesdays or whatever, you know, but you know what I mean? It's just like, I just want to see like a map of like the 100 or 1,000 most transformational, not necessarily biggest or most well-known. No, these are very fringe. What we're doing is so fringe, right? Having these long format recorded video conferences, broadcasts that we just bear it all and just freaking stare these demons in the face and say, fuck you, to put it in Irish terms, to the demons, right? Anyway. Oh. Anyway, the network is forming. And I mean, we're impatient about it, of course, and for darn good reason. But if you just take a step back, just look at how far we've come since the first block party. In the first block party, there was no COVID. There was no Zoomosphere. You know what I mean? Yeah, businesses were using Zoom for their same old, same old. But there was no this, right? And then we started pioneering it. And then COVID came along, and then everyone's doing Zoom, and we're like, holy shit, you know? It's coming, it's coming. We're still not organized as a species, as a Zoomosphere. But you can definitely see where this is headed if we survive long enough for it to get there. You know, and that's just the freaking frustrating thing. It's like there's so much potential for humanity to evolve right now, but we got to freaking stay alive, right? That's the nuisance of it all.
Yeah, humanity is in the race of its life. We're in the race to achieve super intelligence before we go down the tubes, down the toilet. Like.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like we've hit a sort of golden triangle with collective superintelligence, food, and SRM. Doesn't that just feel like it's almost like boiling it down. You know, it's kind of like if you have a bunch of random vectors in three-dimensional space, and then we boil it down and boil it down and boil it down and boil it down. And what do we get to? X, Y, Z. The XYZ Euclidean coordinates, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're boiling it down, and our XYZ are CSI, food, and SRM.
Our foundation.
10 letters. 3 each for SRM and CSI, and 4 letters for food. Makes me want to tattoo the letters on my 10 fingertips. CSI, SRM, FOOD. Then we can give each other high 10. Bam.
That would be something worthwhile protesting for. Rather see that kind of a protest than what's occurring now.
Yeah. But you know, this golden triangle, in a way, it's there's something so beautiful about it, because CSI is just pure information. It's bits, it's zeros and ones, and getting really efficient about that. Where we are now with the Zoomosphere is just a beautiful inflection point in this evolution. So, but it's just pure information, right? Essentially, that's its essence. Pure information, pure communication. Then you get to SRM, and it's about energy, right? It's not just zeros and ones, it's real heat at a real massive scale. And how do we manage that heat? How do we manage the sunlight? So the sunlight is kind of like pure energy, essentially without information. So one is pure information, the other is pure energy. And then food is that energy from the sun now converted into a biologically useful food energy source. So it's like information, energy, and then energy, right? It's like energy at this elemental level of physics, astro energy, star energy, but then converted into biological energy, which is food. So you got information, raw energy, and then, you know, refined energy, shall we say. I'm just thinking of a way to frame it in, you know, in terms of like XYZ kind of elemental shit. You know what I'm saying?
You got a great video for your energy, James. It shows you exactly what the energy is. If you're interested.
How do you mean it shows you what the energy is?
Well, I'm linking it to mirrors. You know the mirrors?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, shall we screen share and play a couple minutes of it? A couple few, get the idea?
Yeah, it's not a long video.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Let's see.
Queued up.
Sure.
You want me to give it to you, or do you want me to?
Yeah. Feel free. Mm-hmm.
Disabled. It's still disabled.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, now I've enabled screen share. Sorry about that. But I thought you were going to give me the link for me to.
Okay. I'll pass it over.
Either way is fine. There we go.
It's 4 minutes long.
Oh, okay, perfect. Let me let me do the proper share. Oh, wait. Oh, it's here. It's got it starting at minute 2. Let me go back to the beginning. Here we go. Oh my goodness.
You can't get in shape because you don't have an hour.
That was really something, Emery. Now, did that guy just take a regular, like,
Regular solar dish and laced it with small little mirrors, all inclined into the central point.
but was it a solar dish or was that like a satellite television dish? Like a,
Yeah, that's what I call a satellite television dish, like a solar dish.
Receives the signals from the satellite
and concentrates them.
and concentrates it to use in your TV or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. If it's got the right geometry, you know.
And that's totally scalable.
That's already done at the moment. I've seen a documentary actually a couple of years back. I'm not sure which desert. No, it's in America anyway. I think it's the. I'm not sure. I think it's the Nevada desert. They done it in anyway, but they set up this larger version of that on an experimental scale, like, and I'm talking about no. They built proper.
Shaker.
It's called parabolic mirror. They use that for cooking and stuff like that when you don't have any equipment, right? But it's got bigger uses, as you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one they put in the desert, they were able, with the larger mirrors in the concave shape, they were literally able to melt fire bricks. That's how hot the temperature went, well over into the thousands of degrees. So just for creating energy alone, as Ye Tao said, concentrating some of the solar energy from the mirrors into like the vial of water there that the young fella had in the test tube. If you have that on, we say, a freestanding rig or floating rig out in the ocean, with the water pumped into the center of it. You have your mirrors pointing at the central part of that, which is coated in basically like it protects it enough just to get the water to the boiling temperature to pump the turbines, which in itself creates the electricity to pump water, seawater, over across to another floating rig, which is designed completely then to force the water up. First the water's pumped up high, then drop down rapidly from a height on the floating rig, and pump that high pressure then through reverse osmosis systems to literally filter all the impurities, salt, and everything else out of the water. It's the purest form of drinking water that you can get from from seawater through reverse osmosis. That water then, through the high pressure being pumped through the reverse osmosis, continues on its path inland and further up the inland and to once dried up riverbeds where it falls into a sump, into a little reservoir, and then leaks down into the riverbeds at the sources, which means it'll replenish the riverbeds, going back out into the bays, and then thus start pumping more nutrients back into the bays to feed them, but also to replenish the water to the land so people can irrigate it and grow the crops again. It can all be done with the technology that we have, using the technologies of combined with oil rigs, solar heating, reverse osmosis, and literally steam generated power. All of it can be done like with our own technologies that we have already. It was what I showed there the last time about when I was on about regenerating or doing the deserts, regreening not the deserts, but regreening the barren lands. That's the way to do it. We already have the technologies. You said that yourself, Jim, and then as you put that idea in my head, there's technologies out there we have, but we just don't think about using them in different manners. It's like we have technologies for farming. We know how to change all that technology to have the similar machinery, run it on the green energy, but have it to do permaculture rather than damaging culture. All the answers are there for us. We just need to get together and put our heads together to figure them all out, like, and implement them is the main thing.
Exactly. Very well put, James. That's exactly it. And CSI. Yeah, go ahead.
Uh,
I don't know if you could see that now, like.
Yeah. We can see it. We can see it. And
Yeah, well, that's basically like a quick drawing I did of those would be the different types of rigs the offshore, and one would be the solar pump pumping the water to the osmosis, reverse osmosis rigs here on the other side, and they'd pump the water inland to the river sources that dried up. The water in turn would make its way down the original riverbeds and back out to the base. It's a recycling basically. We're only helping nature come back to itself.
yeah, no, it's brilliant, James. My goodness. Wow. You know, and here's the thing. It's like those are the kinds of projects that we could take on as a united humanity, right? That says, let's do that. And those of us who are interested get together and volunteer, and in a very open source way, we just freaking do it, right? Versus this consumerist game of hoarding and destruction that we've all been playing for the last 10,000 years. You know? I mean, don't you just like start to see it so clearly? It's just so obvious now what we could be doing versus what we have been doing. And it's like we just need to make that sharp turn in the road. You know what I mean? It's like it's just so clear that we need to do that if to survive, right? When I'm talking about when I say that, it's come together as a collective superintelligence, cool the planet, feed everyone. See, those are the first big three, and they all depend upon each other, right? We can't have collective superintelligence in a Mad Max super hot world. It's just not, where there's mass starvation. It's just not going to work, right? That wasn't a very precise or correct statement. I'm just saying it's not compatible. The two aren't, there's a fundamental incompatibility, right? In other words, there's a stable state that we're beckoning for that involves the pillars of CSI, food for everyone, plant-based food for everyone, and SRM. It's like those are the three missing foundational pillars for life to continue. We need all three of those. And it feels like we're getting just ever closer to being able to communicate that in a way that it just goes, and it's just so obvious, right?
That video had close to 5 million views, and that was the second one. He built one, and he left it in the shed, and it burned down the shed. Then he learned his lesson, and he had to cover it, like after using it. Yeah, it needs to be covered. Otherwise, you don't know. You can't predict where.
Well, yeah, I mean, even a trickle of moonlight, you could burn down the shed if a trickle of moonlight squeezes in through like a crack in the window kind of thing because of the multiplier effect, right?
I thought there was. It's not funny, but I mean, it was kind of funny.
Yeah, a few years back there, they couldn't figure out why there were birds falling out of the sky in a certain place. This is in America, as far as I know as well. At a certain place, the birds seem to they're flying along, and all of a sudden they just fall out of the sky dead, and they couldn't figure out for a while what was happening to them. And then they realized about 30 miles away or 20 miles away, the city, there was a new building gone up there, and there was a glass building, but part of it was kind of slightly convex. And at a certain time of the day, if the sunlight focused on that convection, at least 20 miles away, the beam of light was beamed into the sky at such concentrations. When the birds flew into it, it was like flying straight into that ray. Like they were literally just burnt or cooked and fell out of the sky. the same in England. Some buildings in England, they shard. It's a famous glass building. And they had problems with that too. Cars on the streets started melting at certain times of the day because the heat was being reflected down onto the street, onto certain parts of the street, and it was melting cars and everything.
Unforeseen consequences.
Unintended.
When you unintended, yeah. And you know, when you're talking about free energy, I mean that's pretty free. And you know, when you're talking about using atomic, you know, nuclear power to boil water, you know, when you could take a device like that and boil water, you know, makes no sense to use deadly nuclear energy.
Well, I can't think of the name of the element now, but it's another element out there anyway that most people didn't really know about. But there's just one slight difference. Like I'm not a chemist now or anything, but it's very close to another. It's very close to uranium, and they could have made nuclear energy out of it as well, and it would have been clean energy, completely clean nuclear energy. But they didn't want to use it. They went for the uranium because the waste of the uranium, they were able to, or refining uranium, they were also able to make weapons. So they chose the one that they could also make weapons out of, not just energy. So they actually could use the alternative and get clean energy from nuclear power without the waste. But they went for the waste product so that they could, or the one that produces a waste product because it also produces weapon. The powers that be and their collective intelligence.
Oh, you know, like binoculars that are just slowly coming into focus. That's kind of how it feels for me. It's just like it's just been slowly coming into focus just how screwed up our existence has been and just how close we are to this brilliant freaking future. Super powered, supercharged by CSI, cooled by SRM, right? You know, you hear about some fancy car with an air-cooled engine, la 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 la, right? Going 200 miles an hour around a track. Well, we've got an SRM-cooled planet, cooled with SRM, right? It's intelligence supercharged with CSI, right? And every human being powered by plants. We're just so freaking close, you know? I feel like we're like Henry Ford in the late 1800s in a garage in Detroit, just, you know, with our wrench and our lubricants and just, we're almost there, right? Because it is a whole integrated apparatus that we're talking about here, right? It's one big transformation that has a bunch of parts, just like a car. A car is nothing but a one big transformation with 15,000 parts. That's what a car is. And what we're creating is basically the next car. Except it's, instead of transforming one person zipping around, it's transforming the whole world. It's a collective transformation.
question for you, Jamin.
Yeah.
You know, on the planet, you have certain like areas where it's nighttime. Most of the like certain amount of time during the year, like I don't know exactly how many months, and then it's daytime the rest of the year, right? Like more the north, more no more at the poles, right? Or at the North Pole.
Yeah.
You 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 have the uh, what could I how could I put it, like the process that's in play there, what the geometry of that looks like to produce that um, situation where you know you have daytime and nighttime for such prolonged periods. It has a lot to do with the tilt of the planet, and apparently there's a shift in the tilt in the degrees of the planet. Normal is like 19.5 degrees, and we're at 20. We're at 24. I think it's at 24 something now. It's in the 20s, and so that accounts, I think, for it being warmer also. You know, the heat produced by the change in the angle, the tilt, and it's something that goes through cycle, like a cycle. It's cyclical, right? So over millions of years, or whatever the cycle is, the planet goes through this cycle where the tilt shifts, and you know, the North Pole always faces more towards the sun. That's why the Antarctic is colder. That's why you see the difference, and that difference is you account for that by the angle, by the number of degrees that tilt is.
That's the planetary wobble. That's basically happens every year for our seasons. It's that planetary wobble. That is that tilt. That shift.
There's a deeper cycle. There's a deeper cycle, James.
You're talking about precession then, like, and you're on about you know.
About precession. I'm talking about something else.
Yeah, there's a deeper cycle. It's every 3,600 years. It's a cycle of our, you know, we go on this kind of everything in space, everything in life in the universe moves in cycle, in circles.
Like. Listen, James, there is a precession. I'm not. I understand that fully, but within that precession, that angle of the tilt also has a cycle. You understand? There is the precession, but along with that precession, there's that slight shift in the angle.
Which happens every year, and therefore that's how we have winter on the northern hemisphere half the year, and winter on the southern hemisphere on the other half of the year. The wobble as we're moving forward and spinning. Anyway, we're wobbling, spinning, and forward.
You'll have to read up on it, James. I can't explain it to you. But I was asking Jamin because you probably have studied that to some degree.
Oh, I may have learned about it decades ago, but I don't remember it now. But you're talking about a much longer term cycle. But I think James did mention a cycle that's 3,600 years long.
Yeah. I'm actually a member of Cork Astronomy Club myself. I have a massive telescope here in my room. I love astronomy, and I'm very fascinated with space as well, like since a child. And so it's definitely been like, so I kind of follow all that as well. But I know where you're on about, all right, Emery, and I know where there are kind of changes in the Earth's temperature, like you're talking about, like those precessional times, like we go into we used to every 11,000 years go into more or less a kind of a mini ice age, but because human beings have decided to, you know, we got more intelligence, so to speak, and started producing fossil fuels and everything, we've caused the warming to stop that cycle of mini ice ages. Basically, we're living in a time unprecedented in the history of the planet. We stopped that mini ice age in a sense. So the idea that we're going back, I know there's a lot of people say that, you know, the sun is at its quiet moment and we're going to go into a mini ice. That's all bullshit. That only happens that happens a solar minimum happens every 11 years or so. Like, I mean, that's something that's unnoticed all along. It's just been thrown into the conspiracy theory pot at the moment now to combat the actual truth of climate change. It's just another false fact thrown in there to confuse people. But if you really look at it, like we have solar minimums, we've had them every so many years for God only knows how long, and it's never caused anything to the extent that we're suffering now. If you, as I said, I put in that link last night, the soft weather. I have a look at that and just have a look at what's happening last month, and you won't believe what you see, what's happening around the world, and you won't believe how none of this is on our actual news channels.
Shall we watch it now? You want me to share it, James?
Yeah, throw on a couple of minutes. It's only about 10 minutes long anyway, but throw on a few minutes of it. It just gives you an idea of the impact that we're facing. Like, as I said, if you want people to get on in the game and to know they have to know the stakes and what's at stake, show them what's happening, because the mainstream media are not showing people this.
Okay, let's see. I just pulled up the video.
These are all recordings from people from their own mobile phones compiled in the last month, and it goes back each month like a dictionary, just to basically like a record to show us what's happening in the last year. And it's shocking to see that it's happening every day all over the world for a whole more than a year or so now. Like,
I'm looking for the link in the chat. I know you sent it earlier today. If you have the link, let's see here. Here, let's see, is this it? Oh yeah, I found it. Earth Changes Summary, April 2020. Okay, let me screen share and play it. Everybody game for that? For a few minutes of extreme weather? All right, here goes. Screen sharing now.
achava o carrinho estacionado na nossa rua, olha só.
That looks dystopian.
看到这啥天呢？这雾着啊，去而已。Здесь у нас вообще погода, ужас. И пальца вытаскивали с нашего, возле нашего проезда. Чувак на летней резине.
Heavy rains and winds of more than 200 kilometres an hour. Cyclone Harold is battering Vanuatu. The Category 5 storm destroyed homes and buildings as it made landfall in Espiritu Santo.
So I haven't posted in a while. I thought I would take a minute. 我操，车都淹了，消防出来，批发厅都出来救援。
我操，我他妈脚没了！
all the snow. You gotta love it. I mean, this is great.
Let's go.
That is absolutely crazy. Never seen that in my life.
James, did you see those rings? James?
No, not on that day. I didn't. But good
But, I
catch,
mean,
right?
Did people were people talking about it on that day?
There was a few on about it. It was on Facebook. A few people shared it on Facebook as well. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Pretty bad flooding in that community. The lower part of the community underwater there. 15,000 people have been evacuated. This comes essentially almost exactly 4 years after the wildfire in that community as well.
Sorry, no, for depressing you.
Yeah.
But well,
Yeah.
I mean, this is my point. Like, if you want to know, if to get people in the game, they need to know what the stakes are and what's at stake. Like, and that was April. That was 2 months ago. If you look at last month's one, they know, because they post every single month on YouTube, sign of the times weather, and May is even more horrifying than April. You know what I mean? And the month previous to April, March was horrifying, and January, February was it's horrifying every month when you see what's happening around the world, and none of this has been shown on mainstream media. We're all being bamboozled with the hypnosis and the bullshit. None of this has been shown. These are independents. There's one group there, they call them themselves the two preachers. They run a charity in India and they set up kind of schools, through a religious organization. But they've organized that now as well, have a lot of people from around the world send their own phone footage, and they compile them into these videos to let people know what's really, really happening. Because nobody knows what's really happening on the ground to the average people. Most of these places, if you notice, there are places that are normally deserts and third world countries that don't normally have severe hailstones, tornadoes, and flash floods all the time. They might have the odd flash flood every 100 years or whatever, depend, but not every month. You know what I mean? It's the poor people that have been abandoned and are left to their own devices, and the rest of the world haven't a clue what's going on. People need to know in order to get in the game.
Yeah, when I was watching that, I was just like, one of the things that hits me is that, like, see, a lot of extreme weather events, the world is so big that there's got to be some extreme weather event happening somewhere in the world, right? Practically every day, right? Just by the nature of statistics. But since everyone has high resolution, cameras on their cell phones everywhere around the world, we can now finally capture this stuff. Whereas back in 1975, it simply wasn't getting captured, right? Much less disseminated. So, but it's certainly true that we're having way more extreme weather now than before. There's no question there. But I'm just saying, anyway. Oh my goodness. But you see, that synthesis that you just showed us, James, is a great example of collective intelligence forming that synthesis, right? Because here's what happened. That guy's got this website, scott.net or whatever it is, right? And people know about it. And so they submit, they concentrate information like that solar concentrator that Emery showed us. They concentrate that information into scott.net. Scott.net does a bunch of editing and this and that and compiling, you know, whether it's one person or three people or however many people. And then they publish that synthesis once a month. And then we get to sit and watch it mesmerized for 20 minutes, just taking it in. That's collective intelligence. How cool is that? Right?
Well, my takeaway is, you know, growing food under such conditions. Okay, you realize really fast what it means to have a stable climate, which gives you the opportunity to grow food. You know, and this is what's this is going to be the big issue: how to grow food in these changes, as these changes get more violent. You know, that's why greenhouses are so important, and structures and things to mitigate as much as we can.
Yeah, and you know, part of the good news there is we as humanity have just, you know, gargantuan amounts of built out structures in which we can do vertical gardens. I mean, imagine taking whole buildings, whole skyscrapers, and turning them into vertical gardens, right? Multi-story greenhouses, basically, and then indoor hydroponics and all that. So there's all kinds of ways of doing it. But see, all this screams for collective superintelligence to come together so that those of us who have certain techniques or tools or methods that are working can share them and mash them up with others, right? Kind of like what we're doing right here. What we're doing right here is focused on, you know, strategies for planetary transformation, but other Zoom meetings may be focused on just one specific valve that's critical within a hydroponic system, within a house or a basement or something like that, right? All the above and everything in between. That's the network of conversations that we're envisioning as the backbone of collective superintelligence, as the spider's web, as James said, bringing all the threads together. Organizing the threads. See, because here's the thing. You see how, remember, you know, Google's mission or whatever going back to year 2000, organizing the world's information. See, what they were basically saying was organizing the world's static information. You see what I'm saying? Obviously, there's a big difference. What we're talking about is organizing the world's threads. And when I say threads, I mean conversational threads, right? Because these threads, like this one, it's ongoing. It's not static. It's alive. It's changing every second, right? And so organizing and orchestrating these threads, what we're doing is we're organizing and orchestrating the weaving of the loom in real time. Isn't that cool? Organizing and orchestrating the weaving of the web, as opposed to organizing static information.
Yeah, Google organized collected intelligence. We're organizing collective intelligence. emphasis on the collective, which means we continue to build the collective, which means the intelligence continues to grow. So it's just it's the natural step and progression afterwards. Like it actually should have been the first step, like, but I mean it's the natural one anyway. And with the sole purpose of focusing on the main priorities, so that we have, and to deal with the main priorities, so that we have a future to be able to concentrate on the other situations. If we truly want Elon Musk's vision, which a lot of people on the planet do, we were talking about that last night, and I know Elon Musk wants his vision. If we would truly want his vision of a future where humanity is exploring the cosmos and everything else, well, in other words, he's looking for the Star Trek future. If we want to get to that, we can't get to that without crossing the stream. We have to go on. We have to step on each stepping stone. And collective intelligence is one of the main stepping stones that we have to step on, and we have to master before any of that is achieved, before any of us survive. And I don't think even Elon Musk could disagree with that.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love the way you're putting things, James. That's really helpful. Yeah, collected information is like static. It's whatever we collected. It's dead. It's like in a big pile. So let's organize this pile of dead information. Whereas collective intelligence, organizing collective intelligence, that's really where we're going. And in terms of concentrating, like if we have a certain problem, like see, right now we are concentrating our collective intelligence on how do we get this ball rolling and accelerating, right? You know, talking about getting Greta and Kamaya and whatnot, and you know, getting together the world's SRM community as a united front with a singular message that's focused and simple, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're doing is we're concentrating our intelligence on these specific topics, very similar to Emery's parabolic or whatever concentrator of solar energy, of solar rays, right? So we can concentrate individuals and even whole conversations and whole portions of the network to concentrate on that which is truly urgent at any given time, right? At any given moment in time, certain things are far more urgent than others. So we got to concentrate the resources, the intellectual resources, the people, right, on what we need to focus on. I'm going to step off camera for a second, but I'm listening. I just have to turn off this light. It's bright enough now that I can go off natural light. 5:19 in the morning. Hey, it's almost 5:20, which means it's 4:20 somewhere. So
You took the words right out of my mouth.
See, just for demonstration purposes. So we have to concentrate that light, that energy, that intelligence, that attention, that focus.
Easy now, you're doing a bit too much concentrating there, Jamin.
Yeah, it's about finding the right concentration. That's it. It's ultimately, I mean, that's one of its functions, is a concentrator of intelligence and attention on those matters that matter the most, that are most urgent. And we've identified the excuse me. We've identified the three most urgent: CSI, SRM, and food.
And as you said yourself weeks ago, like if we can achieve just those, like if we can achieve those as a united humanity, the rest is just a walk in the park.
Exactly, because see, the difference between having those three and not having those three is like trying to hike through a blizzard, a snowstorm, high up in the mountains in winter when you're naked versus being just totally maxed out in terms of that alpine extreme weather gear, boots, gloves, a backpack full of food and emergency supplies and whatever you need, a tent, sleeping bag, all that stuff, right? It's being equipped versus not equipped. The equipment we need is CSI, SRM, and food networks that work. That's the equipment we need for this journey that we're on. It's as simple as that. We need to bulk up on equipment, right? It's like if we all flew out to Montreal and we picked up Emery. We said, Emery, we're heading way up north into this far north region, right? Where we're going to climb the tallest mountain in Canada and this and that and this and that. Emery's going to say, whoa, 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 whoa. We got to make sure we got the right equipment, right? If you're going to jump out of an airplane, you got to have the right equipment, namely a parachute, right? You need the right equipment for the terrain. The terrain we're entering into, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, including those who are watching, and thank you for doing so. The terrain that we're heading into, ladies and gentlemen, is very rough terrain, and we need some heavy-duty equipment. We need CSI, SRM, and food networks that work. I mean, it's so obvious, right? It's like saying if you're going to jump out of an airplane, you need a parachute. And it's like, you don't need to tell me that. It's obvious. All right, humanity, guess what? It's obvious that we need these three things in order to get through the terrain we're heading into if we want to freaking survive it and leave the planet in a state that's survivable. Right? Is that clear for everyone here, or am I just on my own out in space? All right. I'm seeing the love. I'm seeing the agreement. All right. So how do we get this message to the rest of humanity? I think we need some artwork. We need some stories. We need some cartoon-like sequences, you know. Mm. I'm going to see if I can do a screen share. I'm just going to see if I can connect up my iPad with this directly. Let me just do that experiment. Anyway, carry on, you guys. If you guys want to talk about whatever, or screen share or whatever, I'll be back in like a minute or so. All right, I'm not going to worry about that anymore. I was hoping I could screen share something, but anyway, we'll save that for another time, or maybe I'll come back to it in a bit. But what I was thinking was that we could show some sort of like drawing or cartoon or something that imagine, I mean, the visual that comes to mind, right, is imagine you have a whole bunch of ladybugs, like a million ladybugs that come together in groups of 5 or 10 or 20 or 3 or 2 or whatever. And they're all like on the floor of some big basketball court, okay? So you get a million ladybugs all on the floor of this basketball court, but in different, organized into different conversations, into different groups. And then as they talk, okay, imagine this. As they converse, each group, and I'm going to use kind of a sort of a disgusting visual, but sometimes disgusting is good because it sticks in the mind. You know what I mean? So as a certain group is conversing, they're pooping. And they're pooping and pooping. And as they poop, like this sort of column of poop rises beneath them. And they're always on the surface. And what that poop is the transcript and recording, right, of everything they've talked about. Right now, now imagine the entire basketball court is this rising, there's this rising level of poop, which is, again, all of the transcripts and, you know, recordings of all the conversations. And then basically what we're able to do now is configure and design the configurations of those ladybugs so that they can collectively create some really good shit, right? Create some really good shit, some really good transcripts, some really good conversations that figure shit out, right? And then, of course, you know, under this growing mountain of shit, of data, right? I'm sorry, but that's just the visual that came to mind, right? So under this growing mountain, then the mountain becomes, that's all the static information. That's all the collected intelligence. Thank you, James, which is static, which is dead. The collective is what's happening on the surface. All the action is on the surface, right? Can you visualize that? Of course you can. And of course, these different ladybugs, they don't just walk around, they can fly around and dynamically reconfigure over the surface. And where they concentrate, that's where it kind of grows like little hills or columns above the general surface, which is the size of the basketball court. You know, over time, it becomes millimeters and then centimeters higher than the floor of the basketball court. That doesn't matter. It's still the area of a basketball court. You know, 1 million ladybugs.
I got that visual.
You got it?
I got it.
Good.
But another visual to go along with that
Yeah.
are the ones that are trying to sift through the poop to separate the good poop from the bad poop.
Yeah.
Dirty job.
It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. And so imagine like these earthworms tunneling through, you know, like, you know, about like Google, how they have these crawlers, web crawlers that go around, these bots that go around, you know, getting information and channeling it back to the mothership. These would be like these earthworms, these poop worms, that they couldn't be happier than to be tunneling through mountains of shit and finding the good shit, right? And organizing all the shit, good, bad, and ugly. Thank you, Clint Eastwood and Ennio Morricone. Organizing all the shit, right?
Yeah, the AI would be the microorganisms within the manure of the collected intelligence.
Exactly. And the AI that digests, it's like a giant digester. It just digests all this shit, right? And part of the outcome of that digestion is, hey, Jamin Shively, you know, given your whole trajectory, because the AI will be able to look at the entire trajectory. If you look at it like a time lapse thing, the entire level of shit is just growing like this. And all these different, you know, ladybugs are just zipping around all over the surface of the shit, right? Well, of course, you could track Jamin's trajectory over time. And so the AI could say, hey, Jamin, where you should be right now is with Emery and Shankar and James and Melvin, and you should be in this conversation right here. And I teleport in, hey, everybody. And you guys are like, hey guys, this is Jamin. And the AI has determined that the 5 of you should get together right now and talk about this, right? Now, of course, we all have free will. We can say, screw you, AI, I'm going to go off and do this because I feel like it. I want to go into this room where they're playing this really cool, porn movie or something like that. And maybe I'll check in with you guys later, right? And sorry for the reference, scratch that, bad example. But anyway, bottom line, everyone gets to do what they want, but the AI gets to suggest, and those of us who are trusting enough of a given AI might take its recommendations. Well, we do it all the time when we do Google search or go onto Facebook or wherever. So here we're simply, using it in a very intentional way, right, to manifest, collect, and grow and exponentiate collective superintelligence. Going on mute.
What was the earlier reference about happy?
About who? You're on mute, Emery. Earlier reference about what?
Happy.
Happy, like happy as opposed to sad kind of thing?
Happy, yeah. What was that again? Earlier on Saturday.
An earlier reference about happy.
For being happy, like it was operation of being happy.
An operation.
And I commented, yeah, like let's put on our happy feet.
Ah, okay. Hey, Uncle Frank, welcome back. All right. Don't you just love that the block party exists and that people can just show up and we're here, bum, 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 beating the drum of collective superintelligence, solar radiation management, and feeding everyone. Uncle Frank, we've identified. So, just like in Euclidean geometry, you've got the three orthogonal base vectors of XYZ, unit base vectors, which then provide the basis for that three-dimensional space. Well, we have found the 3 unit base orthogonal base vectors for saving life on Earth and creating a context and a platform for life to continue, right? They're called CSI, SRM, and Planetary Food Network that feeds everyone, right? Think of the Planetary Food Network as sort of combined with CSI, it becomes like this ribosomal network underneath the forest floor that extends for thousands of miles. And it conveys information and nutrients. What are the nutrients? Truckloads of potatoes, right? Coolers with fresh produce transported by bicycle to a nearby village, right? That needs that surplus. And maybe fills up the cooler for the return trip with whatever it has surplus of, right? My garlic for your artichokes, right? From one community to the other. So it's like Operation Stone Soup, as a network, a planetary network, including whole cargo ships full of grain from Canada. Thank you, Emery, right? Shipped over to wherever the grain is needed the most. Anyway, those are the 3 base vectors: CSI, SRM, food networks. Uncle Frank, what do you say? You like them? That's our Euclidean XYZ.
No, but I sort of want to know the time scale though for each.
The time scale is now, right now. That's why we don't sleep. We just make it happen right now. Clap.
It has to be before 2026 because Guy has got his vision for 2026. I'm sure we're all aware of it.
You know, you mean Silas, Vegan World 2026.
No, Guy.
Oh, Guy McPherson. Oh, I'm sorry, Emery. Guy McPherson. So he's saying by 2026, we're all.
Well, you know what he said, what he has said about 2026.
What we'll be extinct by then?
Well, he said something more specific than that, but
What's that? What's that?
I'd have to get the video.
He said word for word, he'd be very surprised if there was a single human being left on the planet in 2026.
There you go.
And those were his words. When I hear a conversation and if it resonates, I remember it word for word somehow. And that's what he said. He was given an interview to on I think it was like a college interview or something like that, but it's on YouTube. It's an old one, and he's updated that review.
It's not an old one. I just did the video on it. I included Greta. Greta was neglecting the aerosol masking effect, and I was trying to point that out in the video. But along with that, I included Guy's sentiments for 2026.
Oh, I understand your video is more recent. I'm saying the original interview that Guy did when he made that statement was a couple of years ago. In an earlier interview this year, when he was talking to the Hare Krishna leader there from Sweden, he was saying that he had more or less anyway went through his reserves of money and everything since he stepped out of the system and has been living off his own savings all along, and he's more or less out of money now anyway. He's moved to New York, out of state New York, so his partner could be closer to her sister, and he's kind of basically reserved to the idea that he won't really need much money anymore now anyway, because he don't even know if he'll be alive at the end of this year, he's saying. That's what he was saying to the leader of the Hare Krishna in the interview just recently.
Well, he's
so,
done it.
He's updated his review.
Guy is down in Florida now.
Well, yeah, sorry, Florida, but that interview was just on YouTube there a couple of months ago with the one of the members of Hare Krishna from Sweden. I can't think of the man's name now at the moment, but he was one of the main characters. It was during that interview that he actually pushed for people to start, start supporting Guy for all the work he's been doing, and he's been doing it off his own bat. If he is down on money, why not donate a few bob to him? So I think that's happening now as well lately.
Anyway, Jamin, you got a little off track of what you were saying.
Yeah. I was just saying we've got the three fundamental base vectors, right? And I think that the urgency is so extreme, and the need is so universal across all of humanity and across all of life on Earth, right? That the big opportunity is to encapsulate this message into the simplest possible terms, and I think we're practically there. We might actually be there, right? encapsulate it down into its simplest possible terms so that we can communicate it. And we could communicate it as a request to anyone who watches it to please pass it on to, 10 other people, minimum 10 other people, and say, please watch this, right? So it's an intentional self-replicating idea virus, right? Instead of COVID-19, it's Co-Intelligence 2020, right? Co-Intel 20.
You could chain video or chain letter.
But it could be co-intelligence through video, COVID 20. Anyway, sorry, let's not push that analogy too far. But literally, it is an idea virus, and the idea virus is, hey, humanity. There are three things that if we do these three things, we can live, and if we don't do any one of the three, it's looking pretty certain we're going to die very, very soon, like in the next few years. So here are the three things: CSI, SRM, and food networks, right? And, there's a lot of different ways that we could package those three things, and give it a fancy name and write a fancy book and go on a fancy speaking tour and try to raise some money, or there's a lot of ways you could try to package that. But instead, we've chosen not to package it at all and just put it on the table and say, these are the three things, right? And I think because we're not trying to package it as, oh, you got to join this club to be a part of it, you got to join this religion, you got to give us all your money or 10% of your money every month, or whatever, right? What if we simply didn't package it and simply just said, here are the three things? These are the three things we need to do to survive. Put it out there as an idea virus. I mean, here's the litmus test. Would everyone in this present meeting be excited to share it? And if not, then we got to keep working at it. We got to make it exciting. You've got to be excited to share it, and you can't fake it, right? Like when your auntie tried to introduce you to some young woman and you just weren't interested. You couldn't fake it. You couldn't force it. You know what I mean? Maybe when you went to lunch and you hadn't seen her yet, you were kind of excited. And then you get there and there's just not chemistry. It's not a reflection on her. It's not a reflection on you. There's just, not chemistry. So you'll know it when you see it, and you'll feel it when it's right. So let's keep working at it until we get this idea virus right. There's actually a book called Unleashing the Idea Virus by Seth Godin, if I recall correctly, from 20 years ago or so. Pretty good book. But anyway, Unleashing the Idea Virus.
And I put my ideas into the Wakelet collection, and I'm going to unleash it.
Right, but in addition to that, Emery, what I'm suggesting is let's all of us work together on co-creating the right idea virus.
Put it in the collection.
No, I'm not questioning that we should put it in the collection, Emery. I'm in agreement with you on that. And I'm saying something else. Huh?
I'm talking about social media. We got to share.
No, and I agree with you, and I'm making a separate point from that, which I don't know if you're getting, right, but here it is, okay? I feel like we are in the process of co-creating an idea virus, a meme, right, a story that you can convey in multiple different ways. You can convey it visually, you can convey it verbally, you can convey it with sign, with gestures, right? and that the thing that we focus on be the idea virus, right? It's just a thought. Why not, right? We need the story encapsulated anyway, right? So what we're talking about is a story that we can encapsulate.
I like the story part, Jamin, but I've had enough of this virus.
Okay, great. So let's just focus on the story, right? What's the story? How do we make it as simple as possible and, portable, durable, transmittable, shareable, right? And massively popular and getting more popular by the minute. I think we've got the three basis vectors for it. So we've got the three, imagine you have three shapes of building blocks, and then you have a pile of each of those three shapes. You have three piles. Each pile has one specific shape of Lego block, but you have as many blocks as you need of each, but you only have three kinds, right? That's kind of what I'm looking at here, that we've got these, the Lego block piles are these three basis vectors that we can use as much or as little as we want in telling the story and at whatever moments in the story. But those are our three major building blocks: CSI, SRM, and food networks, optimal food networks. And how do we use these three basis vectors to build out the story? Use those three basis vectors plus whatever, glue, right? But those are the three fundamental things that are going to be, those are the three, essentially the three characters of the story, in the sense of, fundamental concepts. SRM is a concept. The concept that we can actually cool a planet. Which planet? The one we're living on. How? By reflecting sunlight back into space. That's a concept. Okay, so that's a character. It's a conceptual character in this story. The concept that we can cool a planet, right? And that's a relatively new concept in the human experience. Another concept is CSI, also relatively new in the human experience. Collective intelligence is not new in the human experience, even if we didn't use that name until a few years ago. Collective intelligence, we all experienced it. Everything from the Yellow Pages in 1975 to the landing, to the lunar landing in 1968, to the Soviet Union, defeating the Germans in World War II. This is all collective intelligence. So, but collective superintelligence is new, relatively new in the human experience. So SRM and CSI, relatively new, and also feeding everyone. Let's face it, that's new in the human experience, feeding everyone all around the world. And I would posit that feeding everyone is the single most powerful way to unite and empower humanity. Unite and empower. There's power in unity, but there's also power in having food in your stomach, right? Versus not. And it's a powerful difference. It's profound.
Well, to drive that home, we're going to have Greta and
Kamaya.
So they could start driving that home.
Well, let's us focus on crafting the story, and then let them be the ones who deliver that story to the world.
Well, again, as I said, going from the context of having just a conversation between generations, with Kamaya and Greta being the younger generations sitting down with the elders. And as I said, if they have some pre-prepared questions beforehand, questions that weren't given to them, or rather questions that they have themselves, like out of the mouth of babes. You know what I mean? You want to hear from the child's perspective, and you want to have it explained to a child, so the child's perspective can understand and comprehend the severity of it, so that the rest of the world gets the message. Because, as I said, 1% of the planet is more or less aware of what the situation is, but not even all of that 1% is even aware of SRM, or that there is a solution. So you're explaining something brand new to a whole planet of children, and that's the way you have to focus it on. And our main priority is basically human awareness, the awareness of the severity of the situation, the simple analogy of the asteroid coming towards the planet. Because until opposing sides are faced with an equal disastrous outcome, they'll only pull together then. Only then will they work together. And that's been proven scientifically in the 1950s, using young boys and bringing them out and separating them and dividing their resources. And they ended up instantly battling each other for their resources. But when they gave them a combined problem, when both cut off all their water, they stopped their battling and they figured out a way of getting the water back themselves, cut together. Their grievances and their differences were set aside for the common good. And that's the only way you can get public awareness. You need to tell them the truth. And we need to get the scientists together, as we're saying, in one room to have a conversation, to come to a consensus, and to then come to the people on the ground who are being left and abandoned on their own, who are being basically, it's been proven to them now more than ever by those that are supposed to be in power and who are supposed to be in power for the people, not to govern the people or rule the people, to be in power for the people, for the benefit of the people, for the good of the people. But those people have lost sight of what their position is for. So what they need is, and I'm talking about leaders all over the world now, Emery, not anyone in particular, just in case you get taken it personal. I'm saying world leaders, those that be, and they're all controlled by the financial system. So it's left to the people on the ground. So we have to make the people on the ground aware, and we have to explain to them like children, simple and plain. The truth has to be told. Otherwise, nothing will be done.
Countdown.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Oh, yeah, countdown. That's right. Hey, we're going to get cut off here any second now, you guys. So when we get cut off, just come back to the same link. Literally, it'll be any second now. Just come back to the same exact link, and we'll come back, and I'll see you back here at this room. And then we'll do the countdown, because I think it'll be any second now. I pretty much started it right on the nose, 6 a.m. Good catch, Emery. Thank you. It's almost been 24 hours. Yeah, it says 6 a.m. Well, should we do the countdown now? And then we'll get booted out, and then we'll start a new one, okay? All right. Countdown. Block party number 18. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo! Wow.
Is that 500 hours more?
Well, okay, 18 times 24 is, I think it's like we're close